Oh, ta-da!
Hello everyone, thank you for joining me in this demonstration of my basic coloring technique using Blick Studio Art Markers on page 7 of my fantasy coloring book. The image on page 7 is an establishing shot of the Drunken Dragon Tavern, which is located in the town that our adventurers arrived at on the previous page. Looking around the image, we can see that the town is situated near a forest with tall mountain peaks in the background, and the tavern is open with some outdoor seating and a server bringing food to a couple of patrons. Nearby, we can see a local farmer selling what appear to be cabbages from a cart. As colorists, we can make a lot of choices that will impact the way the scene is perceived, such as whether it is day or night, what kind of materials the structures, road, and objects are made of, and even whether the characters in the scene are human. They could be stone, glowy, spirits, etc. As I mentioned in the previous demonstration on flat coloring, I like to start with the background and work forward. This time I chose to start with the sky, which is colored in light cerulean, horizon, and cerulean blue. After laying in a base tone of light cerulean for the sky, I work with the horizon and cerulean blues to quickly add a slight gradient near the top to simulate the deepening color of the sky as we look upwards. Remember that creating a blend is a process of adding a darker color, using the lighter color to spread and blend the two colors together, and then adding more of the darker color as needed. Moving on to the mountains, the colors will be cool gray 30%, cool gray 50%, and cool gray 70%. I chose the cool grays because I plan on making the mountains snowy, and the bluish tint of the cool grays will mesh nicely with the blue sky. Also note that the darkest gray I'm using is 70%. While that is fairly dark, it is still a bit shy of black, which will help to make the mountains look a little bit distant. Using a tighter, lighter range, such as 20, 30, and 40%, could make the mountains look even more distant, with lower contrast. Starting with the upper peaks of the mountains, I dab in spots of cool gray 70%, leaving white areas to simulate snow-covered rocks. Some of the dabs get connected, while others are like little islands of rock surrounded by the white snow. I only use the 70% in a small area before doing the same further down the mountain with the 50% cool gray. I make this section about the same size as the 70% section, using a mix of large forms and tiny gray islands in the white snow. Switching to the 30% cool gray, I follow the same process, but also color in a good amount of the remaining mountain as the snow does not reach all the way down. As a final touch, I add a bit of the light cerulean that I used in the sky to add a little more blue to some of those gray spots near the top of the mountain. The colors I have chosen for the evergreen trees are dark green, leaf green, and olive. You might have noticed some odd numbering in the colors by this point, and I will be getting into that aspect of the markers in the final video of this series. I start with the tree at the far right of the page, using dark green to color the entire tree, leaf green for some middle values, and the olive green for the darkest areas of the tree. I also do some blending work between those values before moving on to the other trees. There are a couple of trees further back on the left side of the page, and I just color those in with the olive green to make them appear dull and distant. A good rule of thumb is that things which are closer to our vantage point will be more detailed and have more color contrast than things that are farther away. Finishing up the trees, I continue the process of laying down the dark green base, leaf green shadows, and olive green in the dark shadowy spots. I also color in a small patch between the peaks of the tavern roof and the smoke from the chimney with tree colors, but this could just as easily have been colored with the light gray of the mountain. In my coloring, I decided that I wanted the Drunken Dragon Tavern to appear warm and cozy, so I opted for some reddish colored shingles and trim. These colors are terracotta, red, and dark umber. These red colors are going to be applied to all of the shingles on the roof, the trim boards, the outdoor railing, window trim, and even the tavern door. At this point, the process of basic coloring and blending should begin to become one of those unconscious processes that we don't even have to think about as we do it. Lay down the lightest color, add some medium shadows, blend, darken the medium shadows, add dark areas, blend, repeat, and adjust as necessary. Objects that are going to be darker don't necessarily need the full process, and some things could even be colored with just the darkest color as desired. Staying within a range of warmer colors for the tavern walls, I wanted some nice contrast between the walls and shingles, so I opted for a range of light yellows as close to white as I could get while maintaining color. These include buttercream, yellow ochre, and antique. I envisioned the walls of this tavern being off-white, kind of like the white and wood medieval home construction you might be familiar with. White would be a bit too boring for a coloring video, so I'm going with the next best thing in this yellowish off-white color. This time around, the process is a little bit different, as I am laying down the base of buttercream and then adding a second layer of buttercream to deepen the color near the edges of each wall and under the shingles. Next, I add a touch of yellow ochre near the edges and blend again with the buttercream. Finally, I'll add the slightest touch of antique before blending once more with buttercream. This modification of the process is used to maintain the lightest color of the walls, and using that to drag and spread the darker colors as far and as thinly as possible. About a third of the way through, I decided to add some texture to the walls as well. We haven't actually covered color texturing in the tutorials yet, but it will be coming soon. In this case, imagine that there are big gouges in the walls, and those gouges are not catching as much light as the flat sections, so they're mostly getting colored in with yellow ochre and a very small amount of antique in the darkest, deepest gouges. The stone parts of the tavern will be colored with the same cool grays we used in the mountains. As a slight spoiler, we are going to bring these back again when we do the rocks that are on the ground as well. The Drunken Dragon Tavern has a stone chimney and a couple of stone doorways. I also decided that the exterior platform and kitchen floor should be stone. Starting with the cool gray 30%, I lay a base color down on all of these elements. With cool gray 50%, I add middle shadow areas on the main forms of the chimney and doorways, along with some random stone shapes in the sides of the outdoor platform. Switching to the cool gray 70%, I add the darkest stone shadows and more stone shapes to the platform, giving it the appearance of being made up of a variety of stones mortared together. I also snuck a little gray into the underside of the roof to make it a bit darker near the peak. We're getting close to the end and there's a lot of little sections here. First of all, there are two background buildings behind the tavern, and they get colored in with sand, light umber, and stone. The background buildings add a little bit of additional atmosphere to the image, so they get colored very quickly and simply. They don't even require the full process of blending colors. The windows of the Drunken Dragon Tavern get colored with dark brown and basic gray 5. The windows of the Drunken Dragon Tavern are essentially just holes opening into a dimly lit interior, or at least more dimly lit than daytime outside, so they get colored in with dark brown, and dark shadows are added with basic gray number 5. I do a bit of blending with the dark brown as well to give some gradation to the darkness. The wooden tables outside and the farmer's cart get colored with camel, burnt orange, and sienna. The furniture outside of the Drunken Dragon and the farmer's cart are wooden. They get a base color of camel, burnt orange is used for medium shadows, and wood grain accents, while sienna is used for the darkest areas of the wood and some dark wood grain as well. As usual, a little bit of blending is applied to smooth the transitions between colors. The dirt in this scene will be colored with light umber, walnut, and dark brown. I color most of the ground with light umber, using walnut and dark brown in small patches, and then blending with light umber to create a natural splotchy dirt pattern. In the middle of all this, those cool gray colors from the mountains and stonework are used to color in the small stones that litter the ground. Keep in mind that any kind of wet spot or heavily trampled area of dirt is probably going to be darker than the surrounding dirt, and incorporating little details like that into your coloring can really add extra life and interest to the images you work on. The grass and cabbages are colored with spring green, bright green, and olive green. While I am choosing to color the grass and cabbages with the same green, you could choose other colors to the point that it might not even be cabbages the farmer is selling, but perhaps glowy fruit or vegetables, or anything you could imagine to suit the story you want to tell through coloring. The most important thing of note in coloring the grass is that I add shadows at the base of the cart and the farmer with the darker greens. These shadows could be darkened more with grays or even black, but I think that this level of darkness is sufficient for the atmosphere of my scene. The banners are another of the small details in the scene that don't really need much shading. I use poppy red to color the banners in, and then use the red to loosely fill in the dragon on the banner. If you change the colors of the building in your coloring, you will probably want to choose different colors for your banners as well. We are down to the people in the scene, which include the waitress, a couple of patrons at a table, and the farmer. We could choose pretty much any colors for these figures, and unfortunately my coloring goes off camera here. So if you've been coloring along, I leave you with the challenge of looking at the final colored image to decide what colors I used on each of these characters. I can say that the waitress gets a canary yellow dress and cerulean blue shoulders. Also, if you look toward the roof of the building above the waitress, I forgot to color the little chimney there. That gets the roof and trim colors, and I rectified that after I finished recording. As we wrap up this video, I need to say thank you to all my Patreon patrons who help to keep the content coming. If you're not a patron yet, you can join at patreon.com/EricPerkinsArtist, and a PDF download of my fantasy coloring book is just one of the benefits you gain from helping to support my art. Not interested in a monthly subscription? No problem. The PDF download of my coloring book is also available for a one-time fee on Patreon. Thanks for watching. Let me know if these demonstrations and tutorials are proving useful to you, and while you're here, please remember to give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. All of those things help my little channel grow, and I really appreciate them. Next week, I will be teaching my advanced coloring tutorial, which leads toward even more realistic coloring, and I hope you'll join me for that.